Jai. Before we begin today, I want to acknowledge a dear devotee who had a heart attack yesterday and left his body, our God brother Ekanath Prabhu. Somehow or another, devotees way back, even in 26 Second Avenue, when Srila Prabhupada was lecturing, they had the foresight and the intelligence to not only record what he was saying during his lectures, but to save those tapes. And back in those days, it was just reel-to-reel tapes. Then in the 70s, of course, there was 8-track tapes, then cassette tapes. And Ekanath Prabhu, who was born in Holland and became a devotee in the 70s, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, was one of the founders of the Bhaktivedanta archives, keeping track of all the different aspects of Srila Prabhupada's life, his letters, his lectures, photographs of him, different historical events, different versions of various books along with the BBT, kind of worked hand in hand with the BBT. And right up until yesterday, he remained a pillar. When I heard about his passing, it's something that we take so for granted, just to click a button and expect the photos to be there, click another button and hear the lectures, look it up by date or by canto or by topic. All those facilities are there due to devotees like Ekanath. So all glories to Ekanath Prabhu. Now into our topics of this chapter. Adi Leela, chapter 4 of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, is a deep, deep subject matter. So let us head into there and start to go through the different topics. First, I want to review a little bit about what we read previously. So these are verses from last week, but or last meeting. But what this will do is help us understand how the flow of the chapter is going. So this is a collage of texts. They're not in order. The Lord's desire to appear was born for 2 reasons. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, and he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. And these verses below explain that. Thus, he is known as supremely jubilant and as the most merciful of all. So these are some of the verses about that, propagating devotional service to the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction, that very friendly, personal behavior. Mother sometimes binds me as her son. She nourishes and protects me, thinking me utterly helpless. My friends climb on my shoulders in pure friendship, saying, "What kind of big man are you? You and I are equal." If my beloved consort reproaches me in a sulky mood, that steals my mind from the reverent hymns of the Vedas. Taking these pure devotees with me, I shall descend and sport in various wonderful ways, unknown even in Vaikuntha. I shall broadcast such pastimes with which even I am amazed. I shall taste the essence of all these rasas, and in this way I shall favor the devotees. Then, by hearing about pure love of the residents of Braj, devotees will worship me on the path of spontaneous love, abandoning all the rituals of religiosity and fruitive activity. Just as these desires are the fundamental reason for Krishna's appearance, whereas destroying demons is only an incidental necessity, so for Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, promulgating the Dharma of the age is incidental. When the Lord desired to appear for another reason, the time for promulgating the religion of the age also appeared. Thus, with 2 intentions, the Lord appeared with his devotees and tasted the nectar of prema with congregational chanting of the holy name. So the first reason was to promote and show spontaneous love of Godhead. And the other verses, which come, and the other reason came from that same first verse that I read, to 15 and 16. The Lord's desire to appear was born from two reasons. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God. That was the other reason. And he wanted to propagate devotional service to the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction, which is what we just read about. Thus, he is known as supremely jubilant and is the most merciful of all. Now, the explanation of how the Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God is what we're reading in this particular section of the book. So, some prayer. I hope that's clear. Any questions on that? One is the spontaneous love, and two is tasting the love himself, the sweet love. Now the explanation more deeply, like the bees going out into the flower and getting the nectar of the essence, the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God. Sama, can we have another reader? You have to unmute. Oh, and happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
Now we read about real love.
Yeah.
Okay, Tisha, why don't you start? I see a heart coming up from you.
Happy Valentine's.
Happy
Text 42. 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus, in that mood, he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. But if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all others in sweetness. Yato tarda maso svada Vishesholasmaya pi ratir vashanya svadvi vashate kapi kasya chit. Okay, trying.
Good
Good.
girl.
Yeah.
Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is a verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.5, verse 38.
Oh boy. So Pati, you want to have some discussion
Yes,
here?
definitely.
Okay, so why don't you start it, and then Tisha listens, so maybe you can.
Well, the
comment.
question arises, love is love. So it's saying here that something is a higher love than another love. What are some of the symptoms or examples or characteristics? How can someone say one love is better than another love? Not better, but sweeter or highest taste. How so?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because the person who's loving, like we just read this morning about how during the rasa dance, the demigods gathered in the sky. And they saw the rasa dance, but they were not able to see the intimate relationship between Krishna and the gopis, because their qualification was that they were dasya bhav. They had a love for Krishna that was a servant. So it was not, and they were satisfied in that love, but they weren't able to appreciate the conjugal bhav. Whereas, and I think we'll go on from there to understand how one relationship simultaneously has those of a previous relationship, those qualities. Mukunda?
Yes, Mataji, I was just going to say the same thing, that in Ramananda Samvad, it's going to describe why from a neutral position, in other words, just a neutral observation, every devotee feels their rasa to be completely satisfying for themselves. But if it was from a neutral position, he's saying, it's called Tatashta Vichar, then because of the nature of conjugal love is seen to be superior because it contains the elements of all
That's
the
it.
preceding ones.
That's exactly perfectly put. Thank you.
Yeah, and one last thing is that this verse that starts with the 2.5.38 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it'll be very, very good, this Yatotaram verse, it's very good to go and read the commentary of Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because it's in those commentaries that it gives the essence of how bhakti is generated in a particular jiva, because he's asking the question, Viseshu Lashmayapi, what determines what kind of ulas, what kind of excitement a person has for a particular mood? And in the commentary, they explain where it comes from. It says
Wow,
Vasana, but if you read the commentary, he lays it out clearly.
that's wonderful, Mukunda. Thank you. Definitely want to research that.
How do you read the commentary? Like, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
I
it's
just
not.
have Prabhupada's. It's not like that,
Okay.
right? The commentary.
Yeah,
Bhanu
well,
Swami-
that's Prabhupada's
From
commentary. is
Srila
good.
Prabhupada's book?
No, Bhanu Swami, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, he's translated many books like Gopal Champu, other books, and his Sanskrit translations are very good because he doesn't extrapolate, he just translates literally. And he has a Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is in 2 volumes. Some people say they have more than 2. I only have the 2. But in there, in English, he goes over the commentaries. I have the commentary in Sanskrit as well, but he goes over it in English, and it's very, very nice.
Tisha, do you have a facility for Kindle? Do you have any Kindle books?
I'm more of
Oh,
a booker,
okay,
a book
okay.
person.
Because I can send you the link. I mean, you can buy the book. I think it's still available. Most of the time they're in India, though. It's a big one.
Who's the author? Who's the author?
Bhanu Swami
Translated.
translated Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu with commentaries on or by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. So it's like expanding the nectar of devotion to much more detail.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Also, just to go over, since we have a little time, I think today in the thing, just a little bit of explanation, touching on more of what Mukunda was just talking about. In a very basic way, we see that the first stage of a relationship is serving someone. Then, after serving them, it may develop into a friendship. When it turns into a friendship, the qualities of serving are also in the qualities of friendship. And we see that in the qualities of parental affection, the qualities of servitude, friendship, and parental affection are present. And in the relationship of conjugal love, then servitude, friendship, sometimes parental, taking care and making sure the person's okay, and conjugal love are there. So the point is that one of the reasons it's described that it's a higher taste is because all of them are there. Conjugal love isn't really manifest in a simple servant. It's not a compatible relationship. It's false if one tries to extend it to that.
But of course, Hanuman himself was very satisfied in his eternal bhav of servitorship.
Good point.
So it's not that, it's a Chintabheda Veda Tattva. It's not that one is better than the other. But as Mukunda was saying, from a detached point of view, the conjugal ras includes all the other feelings of love from the previous ones, servitorship and parental and Saki, friendship. Okay, shall we go on now?
Certainly.
Okie dokie. Nanda, would you like to read?
Yes, ma'am.
Okie
Text
dokie.
46. Therefore, I call it Madhura Ras. It has 2 further divisions, namely wedded and unwedded love. There is a great increase of mellow in the unwedded conjugal mood. Such love is found nowhere but in Vraj. This mood is unbounded in the damsels of Vraj, but among them it finds its perfection in Sri Radha. Her pure, mature love surpasses that of all others. Her love is the cause of Lord Krishna's tasting the sweetness of conjugal relationship. Text 50, therefore Lord Gauranga, who is Sri Hari himself, accepted the sentiments of Radha and thus fulfilled his own desires. Purport. Of the 4 kinds of reciprocation of loving service, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, Madhurya is considered the fullest. But the conjugal relationship is further divided into 2 varieties, namely Svakya and Parakya. Svakya is the relationship with Krishna as a formally married husband, and Parakya is the relationship with Krishna as a paramour. Expert analysts have decided that the transcendental ecstasy of the Parakya mellow is better because it is more enthusiastic. This phase of conjugal love is found in those who have surrendered to the Lord in intense love, knowing well that such illicit love with a paramour is not morally approved in society. The risks involved in such love of Godhead make this emotion superior to the relationship in which such risk is not involved. The validity of such risk, however, is possible only in the transcendental realm. Svakya and Parakya, conjugal love of Godhead, have no existence in the material world. And Parakya is not exhibited anywhere in Vaikuntha, but only in the portion of Goloka Vrindavan known as Vraj.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was thinking of, before I forget it, and then I want to know what you were thinking of, how this, when one is exposed to Vaidhi Bhakti, which we're all performing Vaidhi Bhakti, but when the taste for spontaneous love develops, just an inkling of that kind of feeling of paramourship, where you might be breaking rules and regulations not that exist in Vaidhi Bhakti, would take place. Am I making myself clear? In Vaidhi Bhakti, we follow rules and regulations, and we perform a devotional service in that matter. But sometimes you come to the stage of where spontaneous love is there, which might maybe sometimes not be following exactly the rules and regulations, how they've been presented. This is a little bit of a taste of the exalted Paramaras.
Also, it was explained when I was doing a little bit of teaching in Nectar and Devotion, the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. It explains that as a sadhaka, as a practitioner in the beginning stages, we're following the rules and regulations for 2 reasons, usually, because they told us to, and because those are the rules, we're following them, But Raganuga is a stage, or the beginning or the spontaneous love of Lord is they're still that the rules and regulations follow that practitioner. We follow behind them as sadhakas, as practitioners, beginners. We follow behind the rules and regulations to bring us to, further advancement. But when one advances to such a state where there's symptoms and spontaneous emotions, then the rules and regulations run behind that elevated person and follow him. Sometimes when it's presented sometimes people in the beginning get the impression that, they can break those on the spontaneous platform can break, the 4 regulative principles and this and that under the heading of spontaneity, but it doesn't usually
Definitely not. Always, not usually, always.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nanda.
Hi.
Mukunda? Are you finished, Nanda?
More or less.
Okay, well, if you have something else to say, keep it in mind, and then we can hear from you again. Mukundaji.
Yeah, actually, it's really clearly mentioned, Shravanam Kirtanandani, Vaidhi Bhakti Siddhanti too, that even in the stage of the practice of Rag Marg, none of the essential principles of bhakti can be given up.
Right.
But there can be adjustments to nourish the spontaneous mood of Braj.
Oh, that's beautifully
Like the
put.
Goswamis mentioned, there may not be Dwarka Dhyan. So one devotee once asked me, does that mean we shouldn't read the pastimes of Dwarka? And I told him, no, it doesn't mean that. It means that one, Because if you're coming to the stage of Raganuga Bhakti, the element of Raganuga Bhakti means there has to already be Sambandha Gyan. I have a sensibility of what is my desire for my eternal service. That's the stage of Rag Marg. If that hasn't come yet, then this is not even a valid discussion, so to speak. So, but if there's Sambandha Gyan, you'll do things which are nourishing to that. So Dwarka Dhyan means that we'll see Krishna is in Dwarka in great separation from Vrindavan, for instance. So it's making adjustments to those things. And also it says that the things like doing hand mudras and yagyas with hand mudras, etc. Goswami said those things can be not done. This is what they literally say
Yeah,
is different. But
okay.
going to Mangalarti, chanting rounds, following principles, none of that can be given up really.
Good. Anyone else?
Yeah, before we go on, want to go over a point? Taking that same principle that the devotees in Rag Marg have a particular taste and are so enthusiastic about following that taste that they let other considerations go to the wayside. This part here explains very beautifully. Expert analysts have decided that the transcendental ecstasy of Parakia Mellow is better because it is more enthusiastic. This phase of conjugal love is found in those who have surrendered to the Lord in intense love, knowing well that such illicit love with a paramour is not morally approved in society. In other words, Yogamaya, we read about this in the Rasa Lila. Yogamaya, when they first heard the flute, and their parents, their husbands, their brothers, the men in their lives, their guardians, tried to stop the gopis from going out to see Krishna, then they were presented with this. At that very moment is when they were presented with the how far are you willing to go kind of mentality in order to fulfill this desire. So that enthusiasm for a married person, that doesn't arise because it's all regulated, organized. The ceremony goes through and society looks at everybody as properly and legally wed. But that enthusiasm, and the point also was made that it's not manifest anywhere else in the entire spiritual or material worlds, that this no existence in the material world, and Parakia is not exhibited anywhere in Vaikuntha, but only in the portion of Goloka Vrindavan known as Braj. So what we're doing is the chapter is actually narrowing it down. It's like taking a lens and focusing it in on one particular part of the spiritual world, one particular forest, one particular group of people that the Lord himself, as we read earlier, wants to glorify in his advent, wants to experience their mood when he comes here. So let us proceed with that.
Very good.
Wow. There's several different ways to look at the same thing. And that's like the all-pervasive. Wonderful.
I think there's a purport continued. Yeah.
Okay, Mukunda, you want to read? Thank you, Nandaji.
From Vrindavan?
No, some devotees think.
I don't see that. Yeah. Oh, there's blocking. There we go. All right. Some devotees think that Krishna is eternally the enjoyer in Golok Vrindavan, but only sometimes comes to the platform of Braj to enjoy Parakiya Ras. The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, however, have explained that Krishna's pastimes in Braj are eternal, like his other activities in Golok Vrindavan. Braja is the confidential part of Golok Vrindavan. Krishna exhibited his Braj pastimes on the surface of this world, and similar pastimes are eternally exhibited in Braj in Golok Vrindavan, where Parakiya Ras is ever existent. In the 3rd chapter of this epic, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has explicitly accepted the fact that Krishna appears in this material world at the end of the Dwapara age of the 28th Chatur Yuga of Vaivashvata Manu and brings with him his Brajadam, which is the eternal abode of his highest pastimes. As the Lord appears by his own internal potency, so he also brings all his paraphernalia by the same internal potency. Without extraneous help, without extraneous help, it is further stated here in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Parakya sentiment exists only in the transcendental realm and nowhere else. This highest form of ecstasy can exist only in the most confidential parts of the transcendental world. But by the causeless mercy of the Lord, we can have a peep into that invisible Braj.
Do you want to say something about that, Mukunda?
Yeah, actually, sometimes it's asked if Krishna has everything there in the spiritual world in Nitya Golok Vrindavan, what is the need to perform pastimes here except to save conditioned souls? But actually, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and in Ujalimani as well, it describes there are certain pastimes that are performed here that are not performed in the Nitya Golok. Like Krishna does not actually take birth in Nitya Golok Dham. There are no demons there to kill. He never goes to Dwarka and Mathura there. All of those pastimes are performed here in Boma Vrindavan. So there's a speciality to this Leela as also. But also the Acharyas have mentioned in the absolute sense, there's no difference between the two. So for instance, in Gopal Champu, when Madhukant and Snigdhakant are reciting various Leelas of Krishna, those Leelas are being heard in the Harikatha, but they're being experienced in Boma Vrindavan. Because they're in Nitya Golok, Krishna doesn't leave to go to Mathura and Dwarka. But being absorbed in the Harikatha, they have the experience of that pastime here in the Boma Leela. So there's an intimate connection between the two.
Wow, nice. How would this concept of Parakya rasa, same thing? Just, I mean, there has to be some sort of a difference between there and here, although in this particular paragraph it was emphasizing that it's both places.
Yeah, Parakya Rasa is also there in Nitya Gokul Dham, so there's no change in that. But the Parakya Rasa has not a fuller expression is the wrong word, but because of the dynamics like Krishna going to Mathura and to Dwarka, the prominence of the queens in Swakiyavad, all of those things enhance to some degree in a transcendental way the Parakya Rasa in Boma Leela. Because there in the Nitya Leela, Krishna doesn't go to Mathura and Dwarka. So there's no
But
concept.
he's already there, isn't he? He's already there.
There's another part of the abode where that is manifest.
Exactly. There's another in the outskirts of that Gokul, there's a place called Golok. There Mathura and Dwarka exist. But in the Gokul, where the Nitya Leela goes on, there is no leaving of that Nitya Braj to go to Mathura and Dwarka. That takes place only in the Boma Leela.
I think we read in Briyat Bhagavatamrita that there's a sentiment, just like there's a sentiment, there's a fear of demons, but they
Yes.
manifest.
They don't manifest.
Similarly, the husbands of the gopis are not manifested entities in Goloka Vrindavan, but in Boma
mood.
Vrindavan, that sentiment of who that person is actually manifests as a person in the Boma Leela.
Yes, it's an Abhiman. That's why
Abhiman,
Radhika's
that's the
husband's
word. Thank
name
you.
is called Abhimanyu.
Yes.
Yes.
He's
So
an
it's
idea of a
it's a
husband.
mood somewhere, but it actually manifests when it comes to this plane.
Okay, I have one question here. Or now we see Nitya Leela is existing in Goloka Vrindavan, but is not the Nitya Leela also in Dwarka and Mathura? I
Yes.
mean, it is Nitya Leela.
Yeah, but your husband had mentioned it's clear that those Leelas exist separately on the outskirts because
Yeah, they exist separately in a different
Right.
part, but it's all
They are eternal.
It's-
Yes.
They're eternal
it's-
Leelas.
It's an all eternal
Ayodhya
Leela.
also. Ram Leela is an eternal Leela
Yes,
in
yes.
Ayodhya. Yeah.
There's something very unique about this particular time period and circumstance. Remember, we read last in the beginning of this chapter that Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma. That means 1,000 Divya Yugas. There's once that he appears. So here, this caught my attention, the last sentence of what you just read, Mukunda. The highest form of ecstasy can exist only in the most confidential part of the transcendental world, but by the causeless mercy of the Lord, we can have a peep into that invisible Braj.
Yes,
By his
Yeah.
mercy, we're being allowed to go there.
yes. You were very fortunate that you lived in Braj for so long.
Yes,
for
I
some
was.
time.
Krishna. Well, we can still be there. That's the
But-
hard part.
By
That's-
mind.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna. Get our minds that clean to be in Braj. That's mercy. All right, let's go on. And Manvantara, would you like to read the next little bit? Oh, actually, I was going to ask Mukunda if you wanted to finish that. Is that all right? Is there enough for everyone to read?
I don't know.
I don't know. All right, Manvantara, you just read this one, and we'll see if we have more so that Mukunda can read again.
The transcendental mellow relished by the gopis in Raj is super excellently featured in Srimati Radharani. Mature assimilation of the transcendental humor of conjugal love is represented by Srimati Radharani, whose feelings are incomprehensible even to the Lord himself. The intensity of her loving service is the highest form of ecstasy. No one can surpass Srimati Radharani in relishing the transcendental mellow qualities of the Lord. Therefore, the Lord himself agreed to assume the position of Radharani in the form of Lord Sri Gauranga. He then relished the highest position of Parikya Ras, as exhibited in the transcendental abode of Raj.
Okay.
May I ask for clarification or I'm
Yes.
trying to understand. So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And Parikit's question is really relevant here because he asked on the guise of other people, then why is it so important for Krishna to come here, even though we read why he's here, those two purposes, to come here and do things that are seemingly immoral to the large percentage of people, to display a fraction or a peep view of what's happening in Goloka Vrindavan, Raj specifically. I
Okay.
mean,
One thing, just one thing before we ask other people what they think. If a whole bunch of people are thinking that a mango tree is actually a banyan tree, and you go to this town, everyone, it's giving mangoes, but no, that's really a banyan tree. Everyone's thinking it's a banyan tree. I mean, hundreds of people think there's a banyan tree. Does it make does it make it a banyan tree? No, it doesn't. So Krishna's the complete enjoyer. He's coming. It really doesn't matter if people are ignorant, don't understand his that what he's doing is not immoral. They will understand. There are some who will understand. It's not dependent. Knowledge is not dependent upon our ability to receive it. So his coming to the material world and displaying this behavior, which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, it's unquestionably his right. Does it matter what foolish people are saying? That's going to stop him from doing that? That's just one little way of looking at it. There are other ways that are also there, but that was what I thought of.
so yeah, so I appreciate that. And that is what's happening in the world. People are thinking a mango tree is a banyan tree. But to try to understand like the paramour point of view is like everyone, because even the gopis were saying to Krishna, husband and wives do not have that type of enthusiasm or excitement with each other. When they were talking about when Krishna was in disguise of the goddess,
Yeah.
and Radharani was trying to explain about why Krishna loves her and she loves Krishna, but so I guess the point I'm trying to make here is everything is so opposite here. To have a paramour as a wedded partner, spouse, is completely immoral for in this material world, you know? But the best, I guess it's the best way to describe it, maybe, these things that are happening. The English language is not the best.
The people who are, of course, not the people in the residents of Braj in Goloka Vrindavan,
Yeah.
but the people in this world who are condemning. First of all, they're eating meat and killing cows and doing so many things. What gives them the right? They can't even see. In order to understand this transcendental knowledge, we have to become purified first. That's why there's so many things inviting bhakti, as Mukunda was saying, that are necessary to just bring us to the human platform so that we are allowed to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, And then as we become purified, we become humble, and then we're able to accept things in a different way. Especially since we're reading such esoteric subject matter, we have to understand that this is great fortune for us. But what is the real qualification for understanding it is to purify our existence, chant Hare Krishna, realizing there's nothing else to say except glorify the Lord. And then we become purified, and then these things become revealed.
Before we go on, I want to kind of change the subject matter a little bit.
Okay.
Here, you answered it. This end of that purport describes how Srimati Radharani is the mature assimilation. She's the foremost example, and actually the source of the example of this type of love. So with that in mind, the next section opens up.
Can you define one thing though, Pati?
Yeah.
This type of love. Just
Parakiya Bhav.
Okay.
In the conjugal love. That's what's being described here. The transcendental mellow, relished by the gopis in Vrindavan, which is the Parakiya Rasa that's just been described, is super excellently featured in Srimati Radharani. This whole section was about her. The intensity of her loving her service is the highest form of ecstasy. No
And
one
why
can
is that?
surpass.
Why
Srimati.
is it?
That's what's going to be described later in the chapter. That's not the point right now. Right now, the point is this, that Srimati Radharani is the topmost example of that. Take that into the next section. That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Guys.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okie dokie. Let's go on. Faye, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Text 51. Lord Chaitanya is the shelter of the demigods, the goal of the Upanishads, the be-all and the end-all of the great sages, the beautiful shelter of his devotees, and the essence of love of the lotus-eyed gopis. Will he again be the object of my vision? Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love of one of his multitude of loving damsels, Sri Radha. And so he assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has tasted that love while hiding his own dark complexion with her effulgent yellow color. May that Lord Chaitanya confer upon us his grace. Purport, text 51 and 52 are from the Stava Mala of Srila Rupa Goswami. 53. To accept ecstatic love is the main reason he appeared and re-established the religion system for this age. I shall now explain that reason. Everyone, please listen. Having first given hints about the verse describing the principal reasons why the Lord appeared, now I shall manifest its full meaning.
Okay. Very nice. Pati, did you want to have a discussion here? Seems like you did.
Well, I stopped here because this kind of explains the whole thing. Faye, do you have anything to share with that?
just a little tiny glimpse is so exhilarating. This is building and building and building. I kind of like to go back to the next metaphor Mother Samaria used of the people seeing a mango tree and believing that it was another type of tree. I've forgotten what she said. But to me, as we go along and listen to the more and more beautiful qualities of the exalted Radha Rani, what we're seeing is that mango is perfect. That mango that is her love for Krishna
Mhm.
is superlative. It is
Mhm.
perfect. So I
Right.
thought those were quite beautifully written verses explaining the wonderful reasons why Lord Chaitanya would be feeling that ecstatic mood of Sri Radha. Of course, he wants to taste those mellows. Who wouldn't? That ecstatic level of love.
Right, beautiful. So that's actually Srimati Radharani's position. She
Yeah.
is complete surrender for Krishna's pleasure. That's the whole foundation of her glorification. She's the epitome of that. You know, that's
As
Hadini
if these
Shakti.
texts are weaving two into one and one into two. I'm just going back and forth between the two and one and
Oh,
two.
yeah.
It's
Hare
just
Krishna.
quite beautiful. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let's go
I
on.
need somebody who can do the Sanskrit.
Okay, Mukunda, it's you.
Bring it down a little bit. Oh, right there. Here you go. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmano Api Bhuvi Pura Deham Vedam Gatao Tao Chaitanyakyam Prakritam Aduna Tattvayam Chayakyam Aptam Radha Bhava Dyuti Sivalitam Nomi Krishna Sarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of Krishna's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya. We need to move it up just a little bit. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani. He is Krishna, although he is Krishna himself. Purport: this text is from the diary of Sarup Damodar Goswami. It appears in the 5th of the first of 14 verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. This verse is very, very, very,
This is
very
it.
amazing.
This is the verse. This is it.
The verse. So
Huh.
this verse, if you could put it back up for a
Sure.
second. There we go. So this verse is a wonderful description that our acharyas have described, that earlier in Chaitanya Charitamrita it is mentioned Radha Krishna Achayi Sada Eki Sarup, that Radha and Krishna is actually not two different people. They're one person as the possessor of energy and the energy itself. They eternally accepted Dari Dui Rup, two forms, to taste Lila Rasa. In other words, by their activities of Radha and Krishna's love, they taste what is Rasa, which we went over earlier, so we're not going to go back over that. But they taste that by having these two forms. But here it's saying, when that exchange, which the essence of that exchange is the word ladini in this verse. So ladini means the actual pleasure potency. So the pleasure which they're deriving from that, when it reaches a pinnacle, Vikritiya means it creates a transformation. The word asmat means cause, really. It creates a transformation. So Radha's love, when it transforms into its highest degree, creates a transformation that although Ekatmano, they're one person, and they had already eternally separated for the purpose of tasting this love, Chaitanyakyam Prakritam now, Prakrita means now, Aduna Twat Dayam, right at this time, Chayakyam Aptam, they again. So it's important because it says Chayakyam Aptam, again they became one.
Yes.
So the Acharyas explain very beautifully. The reason is because when Krishna comes to the point of realizing the love of Radhika, because there's a verse, Shri Radha Pranaya Mahima Kidra Sovaniyeva. What is the glory of Radhika's love? I can't understand it myself. So Krishna, by his own desire, the Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency itself, causes a transformation where Krishna himself can accept the position of Srimati Radharani in order to taste that love. That is called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So this verse is the explanation of how the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is evolved from Radha and Krishna. They're one person who's separated to enjoy Leela Ras. The pinnacle of that enjoyment caused him to want to taste Radhika's mood and caused the appearance of Mahaprabhu.
Hare Krishna. Okay, one thing I got to say, the Jagannatha Pandit in Prema Varta says, don't waste your time trying to figure out who is first, Radha Krishna or Lord Chaitanya. Do you did you read that one?
Yes, in Jagannath, yeah.
Yeah,
in Prem
and
Vivar.
yeah, Prema Varta. Anyway, that's spectacular. This is just wonderful and wonderful. Thank you, Mukundaji. All right, wow. So, shall I ask for more? Anybody want to add to that if you can? That was superlative, I think. Is this the next section, Patti?
Yes.
Okay, let's have another. How about Chitamai? Are you there, my darling? It's nice to see you. I did see you. Would you like to read? Oh, and there's a. Let's see if Chaita's coming back. She is.
Haribol.
Oh,
Jai,
Haribol.
Haribol.
And then we'll hear from Manvantara a question in a second. But read now.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole class. That's my misfortune. Yeah, this 56, this is the verse that has changed my perception of reality so much. Because when I first came to the temple in Boston, I never heard enough kirtan, enough glorification of Srimati Radharani. And I said, why is she even on the altar? No one was addressing that. But when I read this verse, the whole thing became real.
Wonderful.
Okay, so I'll take it from the top. Text 56. Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellows of love. Yeah, profound. The two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami is a condensed explanation. So this is from Sri Swarup Damodar. But one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. One is enjoying in two. Sri Krishna is the potent factor, and Srimati Radharani is the internal potency. According to Vedanta philosophy, there is no difference between the potent and the potency. They are identical. We cannot differentiate between one and the other any more than we can separate fire from heat. Everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Therefore, in relative cognizance, it is very difficult to assimilate this truth of the oneness between the potent and the potency. The philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference propounded by Lord Chaitanya is the only source of understanding for such intricacies of transcendence.
Okay, so does this make things clear to you?
Yes, it explains the
But you want to put the words back so she can
natural appearance of Lord Chaitanya, because Radha and Krishna were separate, and then they became one again. And it also speaks on Lord Chaitanya's relationship with Lord Jagannath, and it helps us to justify the relationship between Radha and Krishna and their ongoing pastimes and their constant need for each other in that the saying goes, everyone is chasing after Lord Shri Krishna, but Lord Shri Krishna is chasing after Srimati Radharani. Why is that? Because they are the same. They belong together.
The one
Good.
person. That
Right.
my husband was giving the example, I think it's written, the example of fire and heat. You
Mm.
Oh, we
cannot
just read that.
separate.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, we just read that. So if you take the
Also,
heat-
I'm remembering back in Prema Samputa when Radharani was explaining to the beautiful goddess that actually people think that Krishna and I are two different people. We're one. We're like a yellow lotus and a blue lotus coming out of the same seed. We're like two flames, two wicks coming out and appear like two, but we're actually one flame with two different little phases to it. And that statement there led me to include this section of Chaitanya Charitamrita because she was explaining just in a few verses, whereas this whole chapter will very clearly explain the science behind it.
I really appreciate your choice of the Adi Leela chapter 4 because
Yeah,
there's so many profound verses in this one chapter. And it's great to go over it slowly. And
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Nanda?
Nanda?
Yeah, Haribol. So my question is over the phrase, in the beginning, they were one and they separated themselves.
I think
Isn't
Sama
that
answered
like-
that. Sama
Oh, yeah?
answered. Jagadananda Pandit answers it. It's just
But they-
it's just a use
a
of
free-
language.
That's, yeah, exactly. Okay, that's
Okay.
my, that was my conclusion because there was no
Uh-huh.
beginning.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right, thanks.
There's another question I want people to discuss here. Everything in the absolute
Oh,
is inconceivable in relative existence. That explains a lot. Everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Any comments? Therefore, in relative cognizance, it's very difficult to assimilate this truth of a oneness between the potent and the potency. What's an example? I think practically everybody's experienced it. What's an example of how we can kind of relate with the potent and the potency being the same?
I think Samapriya came up with the fire and the heat.
It's a good one. Yep.
The sun, isn't the sun a good example?
The holy name of the Lord is the one that really stands out for me. It's like,
Right.
it's the only thing that I've ever had a glimpse of. The fire and the heat. Fire is not heat and fire is not light. But fire is the same thing as heat and light, and therefore we can understand the Achintya Bheda element of it. But the absolute nature of something, where it and its name, it and its qualities, it and its paraphernalia are the same, the holy name is such. And it's the only thing I've ever come across in my experience that really I can experience it. If I tell someone to taste an orange, if somebody says, what does an orange taste like? Well, if you taste it, then you'll know what it tastes like. So how tasting the non-difference between Krishna and his name, how is it possible that these three names can be chanted so many times, over and over and over again? I love music. And if I listen to a mundane song, it isn't long before I'm ready to go to another one. So I just related with that. Everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence.
Good. Yeah, Prabhupada said that. I heard him say it just yesterday on a tape that this chanting of Hare Krishna has nothing to do with the mundane world. Through the chanting you can step into eternity. Mukunda.
Yeah, I was just going back to the idea of they were one, they became two, and then again became one. Yeah, Jiva Goswami says this is an ontological statement regarding how Krishna unfolds his pleasure. We can't say that God is incomplete in any way, so he has to be Atmaram, means he has to be able to be self-satisfied. To expand his Atmaramita, he manifests that happiness in a separate form called Radhika. It is then known as Para, which means other Ramata, Pararamita, and he enjoys his own energy in a separate form. The pinnacle of the exchange of love that he's experiencing with himself in another form is Radhika. When it reaches its pinnacle, he has a desire to taste it from the position of the Ashraya Jati. It means the person who's the repository of love. That creates a third kind of happiness, which comes in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
And where was that, Mukunda?
This is explained by Jiva Goswami Pad.
In?
He's also explained.
At the
It's in a
Sundarbans?
commentary. It's in a commentary. I'll find it in Ujjwal Nimani.
Yeah, that was beautiful. What does ontological mean?
Ontological means like
Words.
something that is like how something works. It's not a historical statement. The acharyas sometimes speak in ontology.
So
like
that,
they're
so that,
describing
that
something
explains
works.
why it says in the beginning.
You're in exactly. There's no beginning because everything is eternal. But to give an understanding of how something is working, you make an ontological statement.
Does
So
that
an
explain it
ontological-
more for you, Nanda?
Yes, that definitely
Okay.
helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. Beautiful.
Wow.
Is that different than tattva, ontological?
It's based on tattva. It's an explanation. That could be amnaya. It's based on tattva. It's an explanation of tattva. Is it what Mukunda?
Yeah, you're correct. The acharyas normally speak in four ways. Either as a narrative, like Narada speaking to Maharaj Prachinabhari, it was an allegory, it was a narrative. A history, like Narada spoke to Yudhisthira Maharaj about the history of Jaya and Vijaya and all of that. Or ontology, which is to state something like you're saying how it works. This is it, but it wasn't a historical event, but it just describes how something
Like
works.
an example.
Right, and then they speak in Siddhanta. So Siddhanta can either be Tattva Siddhanta, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or it can be Rasa Siddhanta. No, Krishna is the son of Mother Yashoda, and she does not accept that he's
Okay.
the Supreme Personality of
Hare
Godhead.
Krishna. Yeah. All right. Let's go on. Thank you. Madan, why don't you read the next section? It's just a little one here. Madanji?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. In fact, Radharani is the internal potency of Sri Krishna, and she eternally intensifies the pleasure of Sri Krishna. Excuse me. Impersonalists cannot understand this without the help of a Mahabhagavat devotee. The very name Radha suggests that she is eternally the topmost mistress of the consorts of Sri Krishna. As such, she is the medium.
As the comforts of Sri Krishna.
Okay, thank you. The very name Radha suggests that she is eternally the topmost mistress of the comforts of Sri Krishna. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entities service to Krishna.
That's beautiful.
She is the medium transmitting the living entities service to Sri Krishna. Devotees in Vrindavan therefore seek the mercy of Sri Mati Radharani in order to be recognized as loving servitors of Sri Krishna.
Okay, Madan, can you say something about that?
Well, my mind is spinning very rapidly at this point, and there would be something I'd like to ask.
Okay.
When they said that how a materialistic person cannot understand that, is the fact I got a schematic diagram of how the false ego he imitates Krishna, but this part, there's the word self-love, that everybody loves themselves, and that manifests as pride. So when one becomes humble, he can see, just like we had just had the example of the sun and the sun rays. That's also given for the jiva, is the sun rays part and parcel. Okay, so anyway, I'm just seeing how the false ego is constructed, and it's spinning me around a little bit right now. Maybe we could discuss it some other time.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomena that, Lord Chaitanya, everybody recommends, how this humility, we're actually putting a solvent on the false ego by hearing this. We're
Good.
dissolving
That's
it.
beautiful, Madan. It is.
Mhm.
The humility. It makes it, you cannot get here. You can't hear this fully without being humble. And you have to become humble. It's so
Well, the
astounding
pride,
and awesome.
it creates the false ego, the pride. He's imitating Krishna. So when he acts to serve Radharani through the disciplic succession, the way it's practical, that when he's just a servant, but when anything else is inside the consciousness, then it turns into a false identity.
Good. It's true. You're right.
Thank you.
That's very true. Thank you. Okay, we have one more verse, I think, right?
One more
Pratik
little,
said 50.
no, there's one more little, rest of the purpose, and Sudha Sindhu didn't read yet.
Yeah, that's what I was going to have her read that. No, 51. He read the little part of
This is the purport, continued.
Okay, Sudha Sindhu, could you read?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sweetie.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally approaches the fallen conditioned souls of the Iron Age to deliver the highest principle of transcendental relationship with the Lord. The activities of Lord Chaitanya are primarily in the role of the pleasure-giving portion of his internal potency. The absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna is the omnipotent form of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss in full. His internal potency is exhibited first as Sat or existent, or in other words as the portion that expands the existence function of the Lord. The same potency while displaying full knowledge is called Chit or Samvit, which expands the transcendental forms of the Lord. Finally, the same potency while playing as a pleasure-giving medium is known as Ladini, or the transcendental blissful of potency. Thus, the Lord manifests his internal potency in three transcendental divisions.
Sudha Sindhu, do you understand this?
Not so much, but I have a little question.
Yes, please.
Does like the mood of Srimati Radharani, does the mood manifest in certain devotee, like maybe a pure devotee, and
Good
then
question.
and
Okay.
then if the mood manifests in some devotees, then how do these devotees accomplish the conjugal love towards Krishna?
Okay.
Oh.
This mood of Srimati Radharani is one of complete surrender for Krishna's pleasure. Complete surrender, right? It is, and the spiritual master is known as the servant of Srimati Radharani and representative of Srimati Radharani, or the representative of Lord Nityananda. So no one will try to be Radharani, but try to serve her. Try to serve her and hopefully develop some of that selfless love. That's why she's so glorified, because she is Ladini Shakti, the ultimate pleasure potency of the Lord, and completely selfless in her desire to serve Krishna. So when that manifests, that one has the mercy of Srimati Radharani. It's rare, but that's what we're striving for. We want that selfless love. That's the only thing, even though it's funny because we're saying selfless, it's the only thing that will fill the soul, is this selfless love that Radharani has for Krishna. That's all I can say about that. Anyone else? Pati, you want to add
No,
to
very
it?
nice. You pointed it out beautifully that we serve. We don't try to become Radha or try to become a gopi like her. We serve her, and therefore the qualities manifest because we're eternally, that's our position.
Servant. This is a new thing for a conditioned soul to like dedicate his life to service.
Before we
Just-
finish up, want to just
Yeah.
go on to this next section, but before we do, I want to point out more about this purport because we didn't really discuss it very fully.
Please.
The first part of it, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally approaches the fallen conditioned souls in this iron age to deliver the highest principle of transcendental relationships. Remember, we read previously about the servant Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. So his purpose is to deliver this highest principle. And the activities of Lord Chaitanya are primarily in the role of pleasure-giving portion. So this leads to this, which explains that there are three different types of internal potency of the Lord. The Sat, or existence, Chit, or knowledge, and Hladini, Sambit, Hladini, the pleasure-giving potency. So the point is that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this particular incarnation, rather than exhibiting Sat or Chit to their full degrees, he's experiencing and explaining and teaching the Hladini Shakti. That's where the chapter is going to go to the next section. And the final two verses.
Pati, you want to read them, please?
Yeah. Now to enjoy rasa, they have appeared in one body as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, I shall first delineate the position of Radha and Krishna. From that description, the glory of Lord Chaitanya will be known.
So this was all an introduction.
Yes, exactly. Yes. What we've read now is just an introductory to where the chapter is going.
But I think we can conclude that the position of Radharani is so exalted because this is an example of complete, absolute, pure surrender to Krishna's pleasure. And we read that also in the Prem Samputa. Mukundaji, did you want to say something?
Yeah, especially regarding Chidananda and Sandini Samvitanaladini, because sometimes it's a little confusing. Satchidananda, every soul is Satchidananda.
Good point.
The spiritual function of that is called Samvit Sandini Naladini. So when the devotee
Right.
becomes like the soul is Satchidananda, and when the soul obtains the state in which the Swarup Shakti, which is, or Chit Shakti sometimes is called, of Sandini Samvitaladini descends onto the consciousness of the Jiva, at that time, that Satchidananda Jiva can have experience of the spiritual world. So it's that Swarup Shakti that's not present in the Jiva currently that descends to the Jiva. So it is described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sudha Sattva Viseshatma, Prem Suyangsa Samyabha, Ruchi Bis Chittamasanya, Kridasobha Vuchite. It's also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So that is the spiritual function of Satchidananda, because devotees sometimes are confused because Krishna's body is described also Satchidananda Vigraha, like in the first verse of Brahma Samhita, right? But the function of that Satchidananda is as Sandini Samvitanaladini. That's the spiritual function of being Satchidananda.
Okay, I have a
Because
question
we're
on
also
that.
Satchidananda.
Yeah, so that means we have some access to those three things?
Yes, like a metal does to magnet. It's a natural organic relationship.
Yeah.
In this example of a seed, the seed, let's say it's a mango tree, and the circumstances become favorable. It gets put into the ground, the light and the sun shine on it, so it germinates and it starts to grow. And what happens is that the potential, the Satchidananda, what you're saying, the point is that the Satchidananda is present in it, the potential is there.
Potential, yes.
But what happens is that it requires more in order to manifest its potential, and therefore the earth and its nature supply ingredients and the nature of the seed, depending on whatever it is, extracts that and utilizes it and develops its own potential by the use of it. Because sometimes it seems like, especially with the Siddha Pranali type of process, somebody thinks that it's coming from outside and being
Yeah,
given.
yeah.
When you say it's bestowed, that kind of has a equivocal language. So what's happening is that it's a very organic, natural experience as the soul exhibits and expands its potential for those ingredients necessary for it to be present and and encourage it to grow and manifest.
Yeah.
A good example?
Yes, Mahaprabhu is telling to Sanatana Goswami, Malikana se bija ropan, Shravan Kirtanejale, Karyashikan. So he gives the example of the seed. Become a gardener, plant the seed. So that's from the verse, Brahmanda Brahmati Konya Bhagavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhakti. So from that seed, take it and plant it. By Shravan and Kirtan, which is compared to sunlight and water, etc., that seed is nourished. What's in the Shravan and Kirtan is itself Swarup Shakti, like we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada in his books, or those who are fortunate enough to hear the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, etc. Srila Prabhupada's lectures themselves contain Swarup Shakti.
Nice.
They're transcendental.
Nice.
They're not regular sound. Because you could not convince millions of people from all kinds of backgrounds to end up doing the same thing with the same aspirations
Oh, Lord
by
Chaitanya.
mundane intellectual kind of lecture. So the power that hit the heart of each person that made them say, oh, I want to try to become a devotee, that's coming from the influence, it's called the prabhav of Swarup Shakti in the Hari Katha of pure devotees.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay.
Very nice.
Thank you. Nanda.
It's a question. and Mukunda Prabhu just kind of hit on an aspect of it. But my question is when I hear you all speak so nicely with your understanding of what we just read and things that you've comprehended, I just think, is that symptoms of previous lifetimes of attempting devotional service? Because I just feel like it's way beyond my capacity in this lifetime. I don't have an analytical brain. I like to hear, no, I'm not saying that. I like to hear, and I hear what I hear, I comprehend for at least 2.5 seconds, and then it's gone. And I can't repeat it, or I have some inkling. But then that point that Mukunda just made about the Swarup Shakti is in Srila Prabhupada's vibration and enters into the heart. So then, again, but it still comes, again, the same question is that how come, or if it's an answer, if it's a valid question, how come some people can get that Swarup? I mean, we had Prabhupada lectured, and there was, 100 people in the lecture, and some people got affected more strongly by Prabhupada's words, and other people didn't. And so that's
Okay. I'm going to just quote one thing from also Prem Vavarta. That one Brahmin asked Lord Chaitanya, how is it that people are doing the same thing, just like your question, how is it that they're doing the same thing, but what you see one person is seemingly making more progress than another person? Why is that? Lord Chaitanya's answer was, it's a matter of faith. That's all I got on that.
Well, that's like saying somebody that doesn't understand doesn't have any faith, and it's
no, it's not. It's not.
Well,
because
okay,
even
explain why not.
if you don't understand, but you have faith in the oral reception, you have faith in the words. What's not to understand? You chant Hare Krishna, you achieve all things. Okay. The only reason I don't understand is because I don't have that much faith in the Hare Krishna mantra. But if I do have faith,
Because
if I give my
Srila
faith,
Prabhupada talks about how sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta would speak, and he spoke on very lofty topics in complex language, and several devotees sometimes wouldn't stay and listen. But Prabhupada said, even though I didn't understand, I sat and listened.
good. That's it. That's it there.
So it would tend to indicate that what Mukunda is saying, that the vibration itself, just like the plant, doesn't really have to analyze how it's getting sunlight and moonlight and nutrients. It's an organic, natural experience that it will grow.
Well, why
So
do those
if the living entity willingly submits and puts themselves in an environment where they'll be in touch with these vibrations, then naturally they'll grow.
What's that based on? What is that based on?
Submissiveness,
And why are you submissive to something?
because you're saying faith.
Yes, you have faith.
Okay,
in
so
something.
what we're doing is clarifying your statement, because just to say faith kind of
Okay, well, then you have-
puts the hearer in a natural state where if I don't understand it, it means I don't have much faith, but I'm spending my whole
No.
life in faith.
No, but it's totally true. That was immediately was my reaction when I heard you say that, Sama. So I really appreciate, you mean, you can
It's
say
not
that. you
based
did-
on high. Good.
Well,
It's
you
not based
can
on
say
faith.
that, but I'm agreeing with Dhruva Maharaj, and I'm appreciating his explanation, because my immediate reaction was, I thought I had some faith.
Well,
Anyway,
of
you
course,
know,
you've dedicated your
Yeah,
life.
you, of course. The
yeah, but
proof is in the pudding.
but that's why I appreciate his explanation.
Yeah, one
Thank you.
thing also, the metric for devotion is not the ability simply to be erudite in how you present it. That could be an individual, spiritually karmic thing. Somebody can grasp and speak. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur could speak excellently, eloquently, eruditely, but Gaura Kishore Das Babaji couldn't. Can you say that he did not have great faith and devotion?
Ah, good example.
You understand?
Perfect. Or the
So-
Brahmin who couldn't even read.
Exactly. So bhakti is not measured by erudition. Nayamatma pravachanena labja, namedasa nabushutena. It's not measured by that. It's measured by the actual hearts. And here, Samapriya has a very good point. The depth of faith in Guru, Vaishnavas, and
Yeah,
Mahaprabhu,
that's
etc.
it.
So that's the actual metric, is the depth of your dedication, surrender, etc. to Srila Prabhupada. The ability to speak eruditely is something, that's some individual karmic things.
Right.
So, but don't mistake that it's irrelevant, because in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25, it said, Satam prasanga mama veya samvido. In the samvada, harikata of a satam means a pure sadhu. Then he's saying, when there's prasanga, if you're surrendered and the sadhu is pure, Mama Virya has different meanings. Srila Prabhupada translated as my wonderful activities. But also Mama means mind, Virya means Shakti. My Shakti becomes present in the samvad of the sadhu. And when it does that, it bypasses the mind. So it says Bhavanti Rit Karana Rasanaya Kata. So Bhavanti Rit means it then manifests in the heart, not just the ear and the mind. You understand?
I'm sure Nanda, since we're talking about her experience and question, when you've given class, Nanda, I know, because I've heard you give class, and I know
Yes.
this has happened to you, that you don't even know where it's coming from. You just get on a roll and it starts to go.
It shows, doesn't it? You know what I mean? But in a different way with what you mean. Can I ask another related question? Is it
Yes,
too
please.
late?
No, go on.
Sometimes oftentimes you hear that you're supposed to hear from the sadhu, be present, perfect, present, physical presence when the sadhu is speaking. But in this day and age of the internet and hearing recorded lectures and stuff, they say that that's not as potent, or am I misunderstanding that? That disappoints
Okay,
me.
I'll ask
Can you
you
explain?
a question. I want to ask you a question in relation to that. I'm listening to Prabhupada at least 7 or 8 hours. I'm always having, whatever I'm doing, Prabhupada's saying a lecture.
Yeah.
So does that mean that I'm not receiving it? And what happened to his books? What about his books?
Well, okay. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Sama. But then where I've heard it a few times. I've heard it various times in different places. So where does that come from? Or am I misunderstanding that?
Maybe a different age? It's
Okay.
a different
No.
age.
I'm not exactly
we're so
sure.
fortunate.
Nanda, if you can get a quote, then maybe we can find out the context.
Okay.
Because
so
because
I don't have-
there's different quotes, actual quotes, which would contradict the concept. For example, he reasons ill. who thinks that Vaishnavas
Yeah,
die
yeah,
when thou
yeah.
art living still and sound. So it means it's an ill-conceived reason and consciousness. He
Wow,
reasons
that's
ill who
good.
thinks that, and the other one is he lives forever by his divine instructions,
Mm,
and the follower lives with him.
mm.
Well, how does
Okay,
that
good.
happen if
Yeah,
it requires vapu?
And what about book distribution? What about
Yeah,
thousands of books and
right.
hearing and reading have to be the same. It has to be the same. You can have people hearing Prabhupada and they, after he leaves, they leave.
Yeah, one of the things that the quote, one of those original quotes came from Srila Gogovind Maharaj. He had mentioned that, and I think his when I met him in Bhubaneswar, part of the rationale for that was the exceptional sweetness of being in the association
That
of a
is
pure
there.
devotee when they're speaking.
Just like the
But
it wasn't
325-25
negate-
you were just reading.
Right. It
And
wasn't
the
to negate-
association of devotees.
Right. So it wasn't to negate the idea of hearing, because obviously Srila Prabhupada's Vapu, and Vani are transcendental. So there should be no obfuscation, whether it comes via tape or via lecture. But being present personally, the additional moods of Srila Prabhupada, being in his physical presence, there's something very special about that. Like in
Of
Jaiva
course.
Dharma, Sannyasi Thakur, he did not get even a chance to speak to the Vaishnavi saw. Asambhasya Tadbhava Gambhir Chittam. He only saw his mood. Just by seeing his mood, it awakened in him, even though he was a self-realized soul, I want that kind of mood. So there's something special about the personal association of Vaishnavas, but it will never negate that their Vani has potency, even if it comes across
Vani and Vapu.
recorded.
Prabhupada
good
even
point.
said Vani and Vapu. Of the
Yeah.
two, Vani is the most important. But let me just say
But
one
that
more
also
thing.
doesn't negate vapu, which is
No,
what-
it doesn't negate,
Right.
doesn't negate. But let me say that in this kind of sangha that we are sharing here and discussing these transcendental subject matters from the acharyas, from Srila Prabhupada, this is hearing from, this is the nectar, this is what we got. This is what more, we're hearing from the sadhus, we're hearing from Prabhupada in doing this and making me cry, this is what we're hankering for. This is as close as we can get. And we can't experience Srila Prabhupada by associating like this based on his books, based on his instructions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you all.
Oh,
Hare
Krishna.
Jai.
Thank you. Except
Duva, can I
my-
add one more last thing?
Yes.
Sure, of course.
Of course.
One-
Let's go on. Let's go on.
The one last thing is that anytime you hear anybody speaking, the actual speaker is the mercy of their guru and in parampara. So if the person thinks that they're the speaker,
Nice.
at that point, the kata, even if it sounds very wonderful, is
Oh.
contaminated by false
That's
egoism.
good.
So it won't have
Good.
the same effect as very simple language of a person whose heart is pure.
Good.
So the
Very
person
sweet.
will always think, what I'm speaking is the mercy of my Guru Dev and Parampara.
Which
Sweet.
is what Srila
Yes.
Prabhupada always said.
That's
Yes.
reality.
Thank you, Mukundaji. That was beautiful. Vanchakalpataru
Vanchakalpataru
Patitanam Vaishnavyo
Vaishnavyo
Namo. Thank you so
Hari Hari
much.
Bol. Thank you very
Hari
kindly.
Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.